Welcome everyone back to the arena. Today we have another special guest, Dr. Tania Elliott. She is a board certified internal medicine specialist and allergist. Tania, first of all, thank you for joining and for being here with us. Why don't we start with the big question? Who is Tania Elliott?
Oh gosh. Well, um, I'm a doctor. I'm a mom. I think those are the two most important things about me. Um, and yeah, I was like kind of like a boring, went to college and then like straight through to med school and residency and then like started a private practice on Park Avenue. And then really quickly it was like, whoa, like our healthcare system's kind of jacked up. And there were like a bunch of things I wasn't happy with in terms of how we were caring for patients. And I felt like it wasn't what I went to med school for. And so very quickly, I became like a healthcare disruptor and a healthcare innovator and a telehealth evangelist, I like to say, before anyone even knew what telemedicine was. And so that's another way that I define myself as somebody that challenges the status quo and says, like, hey, what's the job to be done here? The job is to make sure that people are healthy, living their best lives, right? And I didn't feel like our current infrastructure and setup and the way we were delivering healthcare solved that problem. It was solving for other stuff like getting reimbursed and me being able to pay off my med student loans, which were like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and being able to like make a lot of money as a doctor because like that was, it is one of the reasons why people choose it as a profession and all of these things. And we're like just to like cut down on fighting with insurance companies. Like that was the job we were getting done and getting good at, and we weren't doing a very good job of keeping people healthy. So yeah, I've kind of like had that mindset ever since I've completed my training, and that's sort of been my mission is to like how do I empower people to stay healthy at home, to spend 99.9% of their lives out of doctors' offices, not having to get poked and prodded in procedures and things like that. And so, yeah. So.
So I guess it sounds like you've been always been passionate about health and wellness, such that like even when you went into becoming a doctor or going into like the healthcare system, there was a clear disconnect between like what you were actually passionate about and like what some of the actual motivations were there. And I'm just curious, like, where did this passion come from? How early in your life did you start to find importance in just general health? Because you would think it'd be everybody, but it's not. And so I'm curious, like, for you, what the background is there.
Yeah. Well, I came from a family of immigrants, and like the truth is, they were like, "Oh, we've got a smart one in the family, and she's gonna be a doctor." And like, I took that like really seriously to heart, and I'm like, I'm gonna make my family proud, and if for nothing else, I'm going to keep them healthy because I love my family so much, and I want them to be knowledgeable, and I want them to live long, healthy lives. And not being from this country, I felt like their, ability to navigate things was challenging. And I was always sort of the one to like come home and say like, oh, I learned this, or this is an approach to doing things, or maybe we should try things this way. So it was like, I want to make my family proud, and I want to make sure that my family stays healthy. And so if medical school solves nothing else but making sure that my unit is like the best version of themselves, then I've done my job in life. Like so like I had this like sense of pride. I also was a science geek and nerd and like really liked to do like these crazy science experiments and stuff. And so I started doing like science Olympiad fairs and presentations and things like that really early on in like third grade, fourth grade. Um, and I enjoyed public speaking and taking complex scientific topics and then becoming passionate about those things and then like helping other people, bringing other people along. And so I think it was a combination of that. It was like, I'm going to be healthy and keep my family healthy. I'm good at taking these complex scientific topics and distilling them down and educating. And like, I want to continue to do that throughout my career, my life. And then you kind of like get put on these tracks, right? I was like on the science nerd track and I did all these competitions and things when I was in high school. And then you're just like on this like nerdy science medical track and you kind of just like get pushed along it. But core to me is health education and informing and empowering people to live the best versions of themselves.
And so, what were some of the, you mentioned you go to med school, go through residency, and then you start your private practice, and your eyes were kind of open to some of these different things that maybe didn't sit right with you. So, what were some of those things that you started to notice? And also, maybe on top of that question, like that weren't highlighted in medical school while you were in residency, but that you started to notice as you were kind of doing this thing on your own, where you're like, whoa, 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 what's going on here? What's going on?
Yeah.
Like,
And let me just say, first of all, I didn't even know what the heck I was getting myself into when I said I was going to go to med school. It's like 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency, 2 years of fellowship. So you don't like even start making a dime until you're like 30 something years old and you've got like hundreds of $1,000s of debt. I was like, what the heck did I just do? So just for anybody who's like thinking about becoming doctors, like you don't realize the path that you're on. And then if like you want to become a surgeon or whatever, you tack on another 5 years. Like people don't actually get started in their like healthcare career, their medical career till they're 40, which is like crazy. But anyway, that's a separate thing. Okay, so what were the issues? Number one, access to care. So it would take, the average amount of time to see a specialist is 3 months. I was really good about getting people in and stuff, but it was people that like had a direct line to our office manager. And so it really bothered me that there wasn't like equitable, accessible care for all. It also bothered me that like I could only reach the people that live within a radius of New York City, right? And so I wasn't able to service or help people in underserved areas. They didn't even know that I existed. And so that like access and reach piece really bothered me. The second thing as it related to access was someone couldn't just like call me to be like, hey, Dr. Elliott, I just broke out in hives, right? What happens? You have to call. It's an automated number. You have to wait for it to press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then you get routed to this. Then you get routed to a nurse. Then you get routed to this person, to that person. 4 days later, I'd get a message alert. Like I would actually be made aware of an issue that happened with my patient. And as an allergist, like that didn't work for me because by the time they would come to see me in the office or by the time I would open up my computer and actually see the message, the allergic reaction would be gone. And my opportunity to intervene at the point in time when the person needed me the most had gone away. And I'm like, I don't want all these layers in between me and the patient. I thought I would be able to deliver care much more easily if they could just text me or do a quick FaceTime with me and be like, oh my gosh, Dr. Elliott, my face blew up and here's my plate and here's what I ate. What do you think's going on? So I was very limited in my ability to make a diagnosis because of all these like bureaucratic layers, right, in between me and the patient. And then also it's like, hey, you're not going to get reimbursed if the patient texts you. You're not going to get reimbursed if you FaceTime, right? Got to bring them into the office. You got to test them. You got to this, right? And I was working for somebody at the time who was like, got to test them, right? We got to make revenue. We got to hit our numbers. And that's all across healthcare, right? It's a fee-for-service world, which means you get paid for any services that you deliver. And there are reimbursable services and non-reimbursable services. So that didn't jive for me. The other thing that I thought was ludicrous was I would ask somebody to come into my office and they would become a number. They weren't a person anymore. And by that I mean I didn't understand what their home environment was like. I didn't understand what their work environment was like. I would ask them to strip down into a gown. So I didn't even have any cues like maybe you're a police officer. I wouldn't know because now you're in a gown. Maybe you're a painter, And as an allergist, it's all about those details and the art of observation that's so important. So I would sit there and then ask them questions like, what do you do for work? Where do you work? And then we would give them a piece of paper that was like a little 2x2 of like, okay, this is your living room, this is your bedroom. Circle the room where you have carpets. Circle the room where you have like have drapes. And I'm like, this is silly. Can I just see into your house? And so I just thought it was very inefficient to do that. And so I was like, can I literally go to your house and walk through and I'll tell you in 2 seconds what's triggering your asthma and your allergies? Those were like the main things I think that bugged me the most. So one was a systemic issue as it related to access. And then the other one was just like a logical thing. Like I could get so much more information about either seeing into your home environment, seeing into your work environment, having you be in plain clothes, like understanding like all of your triggers and the things that are in your real life, like that's how I'm going to make a diagnosis. That's how we're going to get to the root cause of the problem, not like totally just turning you into a number and asking every single person this checkbox of the exact same question, like a computer could do that, right? Like you don't, it's so, it was limiting my ability to make diagnoses. Those were the main issues for me.
And so a lot of your content today in Instagram, it starts to emulate what looks like a lot of this detox content, which is very much like take stock into the world around you on a preventative level. Like, here are some harmful chemicals that are overlooked. Here are just, XYZ harmful, things that are maybe normalized in our everyday society. At what point did healthcare and like medicine evolve for you into maybe more functional, preventative, detox, and how do you view those maybe as like different or even the same? Like, are those one and the same, or do you view those as like two kind of different camps on like one's like on another level on the more preemptive side?
Yeah, so like the number one tenet as an allergist, the first line of treatment is avoidance of your triggers. So if you think about that, before we start talking about medicating you, I need to understand what your triggers are. And if I could say like, hey, don't have your cat in the bedroom and then your symptoms go away, like we're done. See you later, And I think I've sort of taken that belief and then applied it to other things. So for allergies, right, there's like you're allergic to cats, dogs, pollen, you're triggered by cigarette smoke, stuff like that. And those are things like we could quantify and diagnose. But then there are all of these non-allergic components or other things that may like just not agree with us. And some of that is on an individual basis of like, this just doesn't agree with me and my body. And other things are like, no, there are things that we are inadvertently doing, that we're inadvertently exposed to that could be impacting our health. So for me, the first line of any kind of treatment or addressing any issue is let me just drive awareness of the potential things in your life that could be quick fixes. And I think like one of the things that my followers will say is like, do you just like sit in like a bubble all day and not touch anything and not do anything? Because if we follow, if you follow all of your advice, you can't possibly move through the world. And like, that's true. And the truth is like, no, there are certain things that I do that I maybe say, oh, never do this or that. My objective is to make you aware of like, this is all the stuff that's around you that you didn't even know. What are the things you're willing to tolerate? What are the things you're not willing to tolerate? Microwave popcorn, perfect example. I had it in my pantry. I would give it to my kids all the time, and now I just learned the bags are coated with microplastics. Well, if my kids are eating microwave popcorn every night, I maybe need to rethink that, right? Okay, so I'm going to just switch to making popcorn on the stove. That's a simple, easy fix for me, Am I going to do every single thing? No. But if it's something that's like a recurrent issue that I've been doing and I didn't even realize, I'm going to make that adjustment or that shift. And the purpose of my content is to say, here's the world of all these things. I'm just driving awareness for you. And then you pick and choose the things that are like, oh crap, I didn't even know that. Or like, yeah, too bad.
So I guess like follow-up question to that, and that's like very well articulated. I appreciate that in terms of like, hey, this is the difference between my content and like how to actually practically go about life. And the spirit of my question really is like, when I started getting privy to all of the detox world and like how to, be more cognizant of your toxins, it's very true that it feels like you can't, step forward in life without getting hit or exposed by a level of toxins. And it started to stress me out, right? And because it's like you're becoming aware of these things, but like you said, sometimes it's not the most practical fix or switch in that moment. And so like now you're just aware of toxin exposure that you in some ways are not avoiding. And so like, how do you recommend somebody going about their life in a way where they should grow this awareness, they should make the measures that they can, but to be mindful of like their stress levels, as that, hopefully that not being like counterproductive and creating stress now, which is also extremely harmful.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's anxiety provoking. And like, let's just level set here. There's stuff you post on social media and I post on social media, like to drive engagement, content, some of is going to be viral, right? And I have kind of like content pillars. maybe 25% of my stuff is like that, where it's just like, oh my gosh, beware, whatever. That's a hook, right? Like, let's be honest, right? Everyone's playing the algorithm. Like, that's a hook, right? And then there's another component of content that is like general medical information, just like deep knowledge, like, hey, I'm really not sure which supplements to take. Hey, when should I start getting screenings for certain things or whatever? So, like, there is like this evergreen content that is a little bit less kind of viral, shocking, whatever. I will tell you, like, I don't even scroll on Instagram because I get overwhelmed myself by, like, okay, I'm just going to eat nothing. I'm going to eat like a saltine cracker, or maybe that's bad too. Like, who, I think it's incredibly important to take all things with a grain of salt. And so I would say, like, when you're consuming this content, you should say, like, okay, what are 3 things that I could do differently, right? That I just wasn't aware of, that are easy fixes for me. I'm going to focus on those 3 things that, like, I'm just going to implement that change and then not have to think about it again. Like, I'm going to use a glass water bottle. I'm not going to buy reusable plastic water bottles anymore. Simple change, whatever, like, move on. So pick like 3 things and then tell yourself and know, hey, I've just like taken 3 major toxins off the table, right? The last thing I want is for people to, and I see this a lot with IBS patients where they're like, I don't even know what to put in my body right now because everything's going to trigger bloating, everything's going to trigger. And part of it ends up being a mental thing where there's so much fear and anxiety that I'm going to eat something, put something in my mouth, expose myself to something that it's going to manifest as symptoms. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where it's your stress response is going up so high because you're so worried about what you eat that it doesn't even matter what you eat, you're going to develop that stress response. And like, that is the thing that we need to make sure that we address and avoid. And I think a little bit of that is like doing a little bit of like inner work to say, like, I don't have control in my life right now. And like, where is that coming from? And like, how do I make sure I have like a general sense of control and I'm not like getting triggered by all this? And then move through life that way. That's like a little bit more of like deeper inner work. Like, what's my childhood trauma sort of stuff? Why do I feel like things are spiraling? The toxin world or whatever becomes a red herring. It's not always the exposures. Sometimes it's a little bit of inner work that needs to be done.
Yeah, it's great because I'm really reflecting on like real time, and I'm like, if I think about even a year and a half ago, I have made so many changes positively for my health holistically, and like if you told Matt a year ago self that he would have done all these things, stopped drinking, gotten completely sober, and cooks all his own food, and got rid of all that, I'd be like, wow, dude, you're crushing it, man. But as I sit here today, there's so much information that it's like, well, I've heard almonds are bad now, and you shouldn't have almonds, and like so, it just feels like it's never enough, and the goalpost is always moving. You actually took the question, I had written it down, and you kind of prompted it, which is, what are 3 changes you would make or that you would recommend for like the average person makes that maybe they are either unaware of or can have the largest impact that you see more broadly? Like, what are some of those?
I think the biggest concern for me and the biggest change I've made, and like, let me just tell you, like, I am somebody that's always looking for ways to make my life easier. So if it's like something I could like use once and throw it away, great, I'm buying it. If it's something that's in a pouch that's easy to take with me, I'm doing it. Like, that's actually like the real Tanya, behind like all the social media education. But once I started to actually like dig into the research, I'm like, oh, this is not good. And so the biggest change I made is to get rid of all the plastics in my kitchen. I threw out all my plastic Tupperware. I stopped, like, you order from a Chinese restaurant, right? And you get wonton soup and it's in these plastic containers and it's burning hot. Like, that stuff is getting into your food. And that stuff is like cheap, super cheaply made, especially if it's like the black plastic, like, containers. Never throw those in the microwave, never reheat with that stuff. Like, that's an easy thing. Plus, I don't want all those nasty. I used to save like those wonton soup containers and all the plastic Tupperware containers and think that I was like saving money. And I'm like, I'll throw this crap away now. So like, no more plastic, no more like reusable, saving like the takeout containers and things like that anymore. And I just use glass. And honestly, like, I feel better about the environment too. One of my neighbors is from India, and she is just like, I don't understand the amount of trash that we have in this country. She's like, we reuse everything in India, and like our trash containers are this big because like we don't make trash, we reuse things. And so like I feel better about the environment, and I feel better about like what's getting put into our food. So no black plastic kitchen utensils. Got rid of plastic cutting board. I actually have a titanium one now, which is pretty cool. Super thin titanium. Um, None of these stupid takeaway containers filling up my drawers in my kitchen. I stopped buying plastic water bottles or reusable water bottles, and the throwaway water bottles. And now I just have kind of like glass containers for everything. Um, so that's one of the biggest things. The second thing is sunscreen. And like, I don't think we're talking about it enough, but like, I've got kids. I'm not putting all these chemical sunscreens on my kids. Sorry. Wearing protective clothing and hats, right? We are putting chemicals, and like every other month there's a new thing coming out, like, oh, oxybenzone is bad, and this, we're putting it directly onto baby's skin. Chemical sunscreens onto baby's skin that is so permeable and getting absorbed and straight into the bloodstream. Like, no thanks. Put protective clothing on them. And honestly, like, I don't care if the clothing is treated with something. I'd prefer the clothing to be treated with something than my kid's skin being treated with something. So put protective clothing on. And then also, like, enough with this being afraid of the sun. Yes, there's skin cancer, there's ozone, there's all this stuff. But we got to get sunlight, okay? At least 20 minutes of sunlight a day. 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the evening. And I'm tan. I don't have to worry as much about burning. But it's really important for our circadian rhythm. It's really important for our mood. It's really important to get appropriate levels of vitamin D. It's no surprise that our vitamin D levels have plummeted as this like crazy movement for like wearing sunscreen every 2 seconds, slathering it all over our body, blah, 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 blah. Mineral-based sunscreens, yes. I'm not saying go and like sit and get burned, right? Like at the peak sunshine hours, but like we've gone a little too extreme with the sunscreen. So that's kind of the second one. What have I done as my third? I don't know. I can't remember. I'll
Number
come
two is
back
a
to
quick
you.
fix for me.
What?
That's a quick. I said number two is a quick fix for me because I go to Florida, my parents' second home, and I'm lathering up with that SPF 4, SPF 8, to get the nice tan.
So
But
there you go.
yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
think
I mean,
twice.
like, look, you want to stay out of the sun during peak hours. Like, if you're living in Australia, where like there's like serious ozone and stuff. Like, yeah, you want to be careful. When I go down to Mexico, like, I don't want to burn, but opt for mineral-based sunscreens, opt for protective clothing. Be very wary of the things that you're putting on your children's skin. Oh, the third one is deodorant, and I don't think I smell, but I kind of like. I chilled out with you. I used to put on deodorant, and there was aluminum-based deodorant, and then even some of these where they're not using aluminum, but then there's like 50 different chemicals in it, right? You're putting them in your underarm, right by your lymph nodes, right? Your lymph nodes are right here. Like it's opt for something like make sure you just like wash under your armpits, right? And like also be cognizant of some of the foods and stuff that you eat. But I think that's another thing that's been overdone is like wearing deodorant and we really need to be aware of these chemical based things that we're putting on our bodies in very sensitive areas where they could be absorbed into our bloodstream. So that's the other one I kind of stopped wearing.
So that's
Smell, I swear I don't smell, but I don't really wear that much deodorant. And I don't
I'm
smell.
glad, and I'm glad you brought that one up because that one to me is like shampoo, soap, deodorant, chemical ridden stuff. Where it's like I saw, I forgot who it was. It might be Paul Saladino. I don't know, but like there's these content creators now that are saying that like they don't use soap to wash their bodies, and I'm sitting here thinking like I'm not a pleasant person to be around unless I, use some sort of fragrance, soap, deodorant, etc. Like I don't want to use this stuff, but I also don't want to smell like I haven't showered. So like, can you elaborate a little bit on like food intake, what you recommend avoiding, or maybe taking up more consumption of to help with just body odor? Because like, yeah, ideally I don't have to use all these products. I stopped with the shampoo, but like, Yeah, I could use some help there personally. Selfish question.
Yeah, no, I think foods that are high in water content, and like fresh fruits and vegetables, pineapple. Everyone, I don't know if you heard of this stuff about pineapple. I'll let you guys go research yourself. Kiwi, watermelon, lettuces, spinach, things that are very high in water content, because we want to be able to sort of like flush our bodies out of toxins. Um, like if you're cooking with garlic and using garlic in your hands, like sorry, you're gonna smell like garlic for a little while, but it is very healthy for you. It's good for your immune system. I could say like an alternative to that would be like have like a ginger tea or something to try to neutralize that scent. I do have a fun post to say like what do you eat to not smell, which I can send to you, and it's like it actually like walks you through like a list of foods. Meats do called like red meats like can cause you to have like a little bit of body odor. I in general will eat red meat, but in moderation. And you think back to like our ancestors, like they were not like chowing down and pigging out. I'm talking like Neanderthal, right? Like pigging down on meat every single day, right? They would have it for a period of time and then they wouldn't have it. And so like eat meat, but mostly like fresh fruits, vegetables, berries. So yeah, and then the other thing that's important, like even when you're washing your hands, right? It's the act of rubbing your hands together that is getting off the bacteria and the toxins and things more so than it is like necessarily a soap, unless your hands are like visibly with dirt dirty and you like can't get it off. The other thing is like you don't need to use antibacterial, like it's you can just use general soap and water, or literally just water and rinse. When I wash my face, I will oftentimes just use water and a washcloth. And it's the act of like that exfoliation piece that is the most helpful for your skin. And you remember, like we talk so much about the microbiome, right? We have a gut microbiome. We also have a skin microbiome. And you start using all these products and you start using antibacterial stuff and it totally throws off your skin microbiome. And remember, your skin is your largest organ in your body.
And I will say, personal experience, what improved my skin more than anything was learning how to regulate my nervous system, for whatever that's worth. I didn't change anything. I never did anything skincare related, and I had a face full of acne, a back full of acne, and as I started to heal and regulate my nervous system, all the acne, or most of it, kind of just dwindled away. And so I think that's a pretty powerful testament to the power of regulating, cortisol levels and things of that nature as well. What do most women get wrong about health in terms of, I just see it with family, I've seen it with friends, this idea, and I think maybe there's been a little progress made, but around just weight loss, around physical fitness, around not wanting to lift weights because it makes you look bulky or things of that nature. Like what are some things women ought to maybe rethink or take a deeper look at?
It's really hard for women because most of like the research and the Western medicine has been done in men. It's been done in 50-year-old white men. Like that's where all the research on like heart disease has been done and heart attacks and the effectiveness of heart medications, right? And then we started to see in like the 1990s, oh, women have atypical symptoms of a heart attack. No, you just didn't study it in women. And so what happens is women have what's called atypical symptoms. They're often not listened to. We haven't researched as much like how hormonal fluctuations impact us. So now perimenopause is this constellation of 30 different symptoms. And, so like women, like there needs to be and there will be more research done in like, here's how disease and conditions manifest in women. So we have to like recognize that like there's not the information out there. And then what happens is women see multiple doctors and specialists for quote atypical symptoms, and doctors are not trained to understand, oh, that's this organ system acting up or this organ system acting up. So it's not fair to women because there's not like the textbook of like how women's bodies are supposed to behave and react, and also how women's bodies manifest when they have a clinical condition. And I'll focus on the heart for a second because February was Heart Awareness Month. And signs of a heart attack in women could be neck pain, jaw pain, and acid reflux. When you think about what a heart attack is, you think like, oh my gosh, I have really bad chest pain. There's an elephant sitting on my chest. I'm keeled over, right? But in women, it's different because our bodies are different. So just like that awareness piece is really important. separate, so I kind of just went off, I digress, but as it relates to what women should do, absolutely strength training. And another thing I'm a big advocate of, and more research is coming out, is the use of creatine. As it relates to strength training, women, especially as they're getting into like their late 30s, 40s, 50s, like we start to think like, oh, my body's weaker, my posture's not that good, and I have to worry about like osteoporosis, right? Bone loss. Nobody's talking about the loss of muscle mass. So what happens, like, after you have kids, right, your body's all flabby and messed up. Women think like, oh, I just need to fix that cosmetically with a mommy makeover. No one's actually thinking, holy cow, I've just like busted up all my stomach muscles, right? And I've like, lost a ton of muscle mass, and I'm probably asymmetrical because I've been holding a kid on one side, on one hip, and all this. Like, your body's got to recover. And the only way to do that properly is through strength training. And the only way to truly address osteoporosis, instead of just taking an injection and medication and supplements, is to rebuild muscle mass. And if your muscles are strong, then you're not going to end up with like bone loss, right? So muscle loss and muscle mass loss happens first. And we need to get out of our heads that like it's going to cause us to look like bodybuilders. We're just kind of like rebuild. And I'm saying like resistance training, like use your own body weight as resistance and start doing squats. Use resistance bands, use 5-pound weights. I don't care, but start implementing that 3 times a week. And honestly, if you have to choose between that and cardio, choose that. Choose the building of muscle. The second, as it relates to supplements for women, more and more literature around creatine that helps with the support of muscle mass, and then also supporting our brains and our brain health and even our sleep when we are in stressful situations. And when you've got little kids and you've got, marital issues, and you're maybe taking care of your parents that are getting older, and you have no time for self-care and all of this, you're in a constant stressful situation, and creatine can actually help you and support your brain health and your sleep when you're in this constant high level of stress.
I don't even have a question. What I will say is I did gift. You'll like to hear this, Tanya. I gifted my sisters creatine now for Christmas. Now I don't know if they took it. I don't know if they've taken it because there was some resistance. Matt, I don't want to take creatine. That's gonna make me look bulky.
Maybe gain weight or something. People, you have that perception. No, it's not. You're actually like gonna feel. But I started taking it, and I'm like, ooh, like I felt less like achy. I felt more limber, and I felt like I was strong, like that I could do more things. Like I felt stronger. Even after a couple days, you start to notice it.
I mean, I'd been on it for about 90 days. At one point, I lost weight. Like the scale went down. Just more intense workouts because I had better muscle endurance. So anyway, well, personal experience there. But I guess one last question, and then we can probably wrap here. But the other thing I wanted to talk about, I feel like I'm asking all these like challenging, like counterintuitive type questions, but you're out here in the content creation space, and you're creating literally healthy content that's probably good for us to consume. At the same time, we talk about like social media, hacking our dopamine receptors. And so how have you thought about the average consumer consuming social media in a way that's healthy? Because I'm about ready to just like delete Instagram, but I also want to see Tania Elliott's content because I learn a lot, right? And she's great. But how do I go about this?
Yeah. It's really hard. Here are a couple of things that I've done, which I think could be helpful. Number one, don't reach for your phone first thing in the morning. I say don't drink coffee first thing in the morning, wait an hour. Also don't touch your phone, right? And it like just gives your this, like the sleep state is this recovery state. And then you're in this kind of fugue in between state for about 90 minutes when you first wake up, where you want to reflect on and remember your dreams, where you want to just like have some time for yourself. If you're up early enough, like watch the sunrise. Maybe it's before like your partner wakes up or family members or whatever. Or it's just like this peaceful time. Like preserve that time in the morning and don't look at your phone. Same thing goes, like your phone does not come into the bedroom with you at night, right? So there's no reason, there's no need, nobody needs you. It's 9:00 at night. Like stop, we're not that important. There's nothing that important happening on social media. I put my phone like I hide it in different places in my house. Like I'll put it in like a drawer. I'll put it in high up in a cabinet. I'm just like I'm not looking at this thing. So morning and night is like phone free time. Um, and then I also will take like weekends where I don't bring my phone. I'll go on a vacation and I just don't bring my phone. I'm just off. And I would say at least like one weekend a month, don't have your phone with you and be offline. The last thing I'll say is like the awareness of the addiction is really important. And I'm gonna give away, but I'm gonna do a post soon that's like how do you know you're addicted to your phone? Is when you feel like you have to go to the bathroom and you're looking for your phone. Like you're automatically like subconsciously like looking for your phone before you like go to make a number two. That's when you know like I got a problem. Like so anyway, the awareness is like the first piece to say like, hey, this is an issue or a problem. I don't think you need to completely turn off social media because the truth, it's not social media. It is how we're consuming and learning and gaining information. So it's really important, but there has to be that balance of like the off time.
Yeah, that I think going a weekend without the phone would be a real challenge for me. I'm definitely aware of it, and I stopped doing the phone in the morning, and that's been somewhat helpful, at least for the first 30 minutes. And then I do no caffeine for the first hour. But then again, I work out in the morning, so it's kind of nice to have a little bit of caffeine. Although, anyways, that's my little tangent. Did you have something you wanted to say, MD? I heard you come off.
No, I felt a bit called out there on the bathroom piece, but no, I
No, I'm just kidding.
but no, I'm starting to love the idea of like stop blaming the thing and be mindful of like your own relationship with the thing and take more control and ownership of how you interface with the thing, right? And so, yeah, like stop blaming social media, blame the way that you use it. And maybe blame's a harsh way to put it, but audit that piece.
It's not just that, it's how we stay connected. I realize like, oh, I'm gonna work out, and then I'm like, oh shit, I got Spotify on my phone. Or oh crap, I'm gonna go on a vacation and I'm like, I literally did this. I was going to stay at an Airbnb and I'm like, F it, I'm leaving my phone at home. And then I'm like, oh my God, I can't even see the Airbnb. I don't even know the code to get in where I'm staying. And I literally had to call my father and have him come to my house and get into my phone to tell me. So like there's all these reasons why we're attached to our phone. It's not just social media. And then what happens is once you pick up your phone for that other thing, because we don't wear a watch anymore, our music is connected to it. There's all these other things that are connected to it. Then we're like, oh, well, I'll just scroll. And I'll just
It's how I get through my building to unlock doors, as bougie as that sounds. I don't want to open my phone, but it's how I unlock my doors. Like, I hate it.
So it's all that stuff that we have to like be aware of. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like hard to function without having this darn thing for a whole bunch of reasons, not just social. We're addicted to this device everywhere. Remember when we grew up, there was like a landline, like we didn't even have that. We printed out things on MapQuest.
I remember that. I
So,
do. I was privy to those. I had to go to baseball tournaments when I remember printing out stuff on MapQuest to figure out where we were going.
No, we lost half our audience on MapQuest just now. I promise you.
Tanya, to wrap this up, what are you most proud of in life?
oh man, well, gosh. I guess my evolution as a person of being more open to being trusting of people and relationships. I think I grew up like really closed off and like distrusting of people. Stuff people are out to get me and stuff. And I just like I put myself out there. I become like a lot more open and like a lot of amazing people have come into my life. And I think I'm the proudest of like that personal evolution.
Wow. I love it. What an answer. All right, Tanya Elliott, everybody. Thank you, Tanya, so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Bye guys.